Hey guys, Happy New Year. And honestly, thank you so much for watching this YouTube. Now, I've been getting a lot of comments in my YouTube lately because, I'm daring to go, I feel, into topics that are a bit taboo and maybe a little bit shaky in the world of AI. And definitely there are a lot of people, maybe because of the titles of my YouTube videos and maybe because of just the electricity of this topic, especially as far as creatives go, that a lot of people come in and they say, "Hey, no, this is wrong. Democratization isn't really happening. This writer doesn't understand what reparations is, and you know, you know, AI companies have a lot of power and blah blah blah." Which a lot of it is all true, but I feel the need to address that and maybe to just talk through like why I started this channel because for me, like I am a person who has been a journalist, I've been a writer, I have been a teacher, I've also been a venture capitalist, I've also trained to be a monk, and I've also been an entrepreneur, I've also been a media professional. So a lot of different journeys for me personally. I've also been a musician, a professional musician. So I've had a lot of different journeys in my life, and throughout that, especially for the last 20 years, I've been very involved in technology and I love technology. And also in the last decade, I've wanted to have a YouTube, honestly. And it's been because of just life, or I just didn't have confidence or what have you, or I was watching YouTube videos that I just didn't feel like I could do. I didn't have the space or the energy or whatever the reasons. I had all these excuses. And finally, just because of the encouragement of a few friends and a few colleagues, as well as just like watching other YouTubers, honestly, and streamers as well, and learning like how they did it and what they're doing about content. And just, it feels like a unique time to get into content, especially at a time when there's just huge YouTubers like Mr. Beast. But at the same time, like maybe it feels like there's an opportunity now to jump in. And finally feel like, hey, I'm jumping in to invest in myself as a creator and as an artist or what have you. And so here we are. And honestly, like for me, this YouTube channel is a reflection of a lot of things of myself, which are that I love creativity. I'm an aspiring artist, or I am an artist to some extent. And I am also a journalist and a media person. I like to think a lot of things with a lot of curiosity. And for me, this YouTube channel is honestly a chance to explore, right? It's an opportunity for me to think out loud my thoughts and explore them with you. And again, thank you for listening and watching. If you even made it this far, which is not common, I'm still a small channel, but I am doing this because I'm curious about where this is all going, right? As a person who has previously been a writer, a musician, a journalist, and been on, I feel, that side of the fence where the sanctity of copyright and of creativity and human ingenuity was such a clear and pure and important part of who we are. And I also studied art history as well, by the way. And so like, I don't want to lose that, right? At the same time, there's this thread in me that, hey, I've been in technology ever since I was a kid, right? My dad was an engineer. I grew up in an engineer's household. I got to play with the earliest computers that my dad got from his office, and I could play with all the latest computers. I played with the first Macintosh, played with old Sun microsystem. I played with, Linux and Ubuntu. I don't know how to engineer and code, but I know how to play. And it's very close to my heart to have been in certain movements within this, like the open source movement, and been inside of the Barcamp world, if you're familiar, and to be in the Linux community, and also to then be in like a budding Asian tech community, which is trying to make it as well. Like I've spent 14 years in Asia. A lot of that period I was in tech, right? From journalist to entrepreneur to venture capitalist, and all of that time to be under the shadow in a lot of ways of Silicon Valley, right? And to watch as Asia tried to find itself, right? With the there's you know, put yourself in my shoes for a second here, where hey, I'm a Vietnamese American, and in a lot of ways, Vietnam won the war, but also Vietnam lost the economic war. Vietnam had to crawl its way into where it is today. And a lot of Asia did too, right? A lot of Asia has an inferiority complex. And so, from that vantage of being in Asia and watching as America and as Silicon Valley in particular dominates tech over and over again, and there's these narratives that I have written and a lot of other writers that I knew and entrepreneurs that we knew or that we still know and venture capitalists, we're always thinking, how does Asia become Silicon Valley? What is the Asian Silicon Valley? Is it Shenzhen? Is it, you know, Tokyo? Is it Hong Kong? Is it Singapore? Whatever. And so like everybody's always kind of looking at Silicon Valley. At the same time, like I love tech, right? I love what it has done for my family, where I grew up having to like pay, you know, $50 to make a phone call to Vietnam as a kid, to being able to text my aunts and uncles on a whim, right? Like that transformation is something that is ineffable. It's hard to describe because now we just live in it all the time. And so there is an optimism in me around tech, and to have experienced new user experiences of like Uber to Netflix to Spotify to whatever, that they have, yes, they are massive corporations that extract value or disrupt, even destruct industries. And yet at the same time, as a user, I cannot help at the same time of embracing how my life has changed in positive and sometimes in negative ways, right? On one side, I can now access any music that I want, unlike in the Napster days, even pre-Napster days, right? It was, you know, LPs and CDs, right? I even got in trouble, by the way, with the police for stealing a CD when I was a kid, right? And so like to go to Napster, where you could download almost anything. And then from that, back away from that to Kazaa and all those things and LimeWire, and then to Spotify and iTunes and this world that we live in now of Apple Music, etc., where, you know, we can have these like clashes between artists and labels and other artists via social media and all, and this ecosystem is way more complex and way more interesting in so many ways. And I love it in a lot of ways, right? It's just things that we could never have dreamed of 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And yet at the same time, yes, there's also this critique that, hey, look, like with Spotify, we're not listening to albums as much anymore. So we've lost something along the way, or we're trying to reclaim it. There's a nostalgia. Anyway, this is kind of a long tangent to say that where I feel that I'm trying to find myself and bring potentially a community of people is along these conversations of just really questions, right? About what all of this means in a way that both preserves the humanity or the creativity or the originality, and to rediscover what that means. Because I think if I looked at the musicians, going back to the example of like what it was pre-Napster, and then what it is today, which is this complex organism of things that any random artist has to be able to do to be successful, that is such a profound evolution in this 15, 20-year period. And I would be remiss to not look upon that 15, 20-year period for musicians as a lesson in how do we look at technology moving forward and not to resist it, right? And so my bias is that I have loved technology since forever, and I enjoy it, and I appreciate how it's changed things, and while at the same time being open-eyed about how it has caused depression and even suicide, and it has warped our sense of friendship and family and politics and governance and society. And at the same time, I can't help but think that it has also saved lives, right? It has changed the way that our relationship to truth, for both better with Google, right? To be able to Google an answer and find out right away whether fact or fiction or memory, right? Versus, you know, misinformation and disinformation, that whole world that has emerged with bots, farms, and all of that kind of stuff, you know? And so like, I think for me, I look at AI as that double-edged sword, right? And I have a little bit more optimism just because I look at tech from this optimistic lens and that bias. But at the same time, I want to encourage the viewers that come into my comments and in my opinion, kind of come with a little bit of a bias, right? That they dislike something or whatever, and so like they come in and say, hey, like this is just completely wrong or whatever. Because I think there's worth considering what is the seed here of what could be. What could be with AI? What could be where I now have an assistant, an AI companion to create music with me on the journey? What happens when I have an AI assistant that can literally, I can sing to them and it can create an orchestra based on that, right? Which like I think a few years ago, Justin Bieber literally had an orchestra and was doing that. He was just humming and they were like replicating what he was humming on the spot, which is a privilege for him. And maybe he has achieved that. And it's a beautiful thing that he is this great musician that's done that. But also, I wish everybody had that, right? To some extent. I wish everybody had access to Google. Wish everybody had access to these AI tools that allow me to think better or question better or get my answers faster or whatever. Because that's what I want to see for everybody. I don't think it's fair that everybody has less access to information or education or network than everybody else. I want everybody, to have that full access that everybody could have, and then they figure out what they want to do with that. So I think that's kind of my ethos for this channel is really, and why I've kind of stuck with Min's Mind, even though it's hard to Google and hard to find, etc. Like, it is about having an open mind. It's about having a curiosity. It's about having a sense of exploration about what's going to happen in this very weird and dangerous and scary, but also like exuberant. And to me, kind of like on one side, we have people who are saying, hey, look, the world is going to be doomed because humanity is going to be destroyed by these AI who are going to kill us when they realize that we're useless and we're bad for the environment or whatever it is, right? Just like Agent from the Matrix, like Agent Smith, who thinks that we're a virus, right? That's that one extreme. And then that other extreme where, the Brian Thompsons or whatever of the world who are saying, hey, look, at some point we're going to hit a singularity and AI is going to solve all of our problems, cancer, space, warp, and all of that. And I want to lean into that a little bit more because I feel like that conversation is also so far out that it's not really engaging with maybe something that's a little bit in the middle here. And even this side of the conversation where it's so extreme that we're all going to die, it's also like sometimes ignoring what is possible right now and how it's going to help humanity. And so like, this is how I feel like we should be approaching these problems of where this is all headed. That's my kind of conviction about where it's all going. I just want to be really open-eyed about what this could all be. And at the same time, like, I want to be there, front row seat during the redefinition. Because I think, especially as AI starts doing things that we feel are meaningful to us as in our identity and in our value as working people in a productive, post-industrial world. And we're going to have to redefine things like originality, creativity, meaning, humanity. These are like big philosophical questions that are not going to be solved, I think, by a conversation that is like so extreme in both directions. I think it is going to require a conversation that goes deep into the objections and how where this side is getting wrong, and also what this side is getting wrong, and what any side is getting wrong, and then also being explorative about what's possible now in the immediate future and what's possible in the far, far future. So anyway, thank you for sticking with me for that long, but I just needed to vent all of that out because I felt like, maybe I'm not finding the right audience, or maybe the right audience is finding me, and maybe this is the conversation that I need to have with you guys of, hey, I hear the negativity. I hear the critical feedback. I hear the objections to AI. At the same time, I'm thinking, hey, look, like, yes, there's all these bad things, copyright, patent, Maybe the corporations that have the control are extremely powerful, too powerful, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, all of that being true, but also like what can happen out of that? What beautiful thing could happen out of that? I feel like we should be exploring that at some level, because I think that's where things get really, really interesting. I think we have to be able to flex our philosophies because this thing is just moving so fast, unbelievably fast, faster than I can conceptualize, faster than any of my friends can conceptualize. And I think that's why it requires this conversation that is very open and curious and trying to integrate a lot of different things at the same time. And I think that's why I'm leaning into my Buddhist background. I'm leaning into my understanding of technology. I'm leaning into creativity and understanding of art and history and all of that, politics, all of that kind of converging in a space that is open-ended, right? So hopefully, this channel is going to change a lot. I hit a big milestone this last week of 50 videos, which I didn't think I would achieve so fast. I've just been so in love with doing this stuff. And even though there's not a lot of people viewing me, I love it. And, I'm learning how to yap, which is itself a real skill. And I am really, really curious who else out there in the universe is going to find me and have a conversation, because I want to learn from everybody else. And I'm hoping that this channel also evolves, right? I've been thinking about bringing on my friends and other creative people onto the channel to talk about, where they see AI going and where they feel that, what are they excited about in terms of AI. And I also want to bring in people who might disagree with me and maybe get into some debates. That might be also fun too. So we'll see how that all lands and where that's all going to go. But I'm optimistic. I'm really excited for what's going to come. And yeah, so thank you everybody who's been following and let me know what you think. I hope that lands well for you if you stuck this long listening. Yeah. Anyway, more to come and a lot more updates. So thanks a lot, guys.